Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Russell Jackman. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. And again, today's trivia theme is the NBA. I know Russell will be happy with that.
Boy, we've been pretty good with those questions.
Yeah, oh yeah. And these questions here, I know where you said last time, you go, I got to make them a little harder. These are a little bit harder, but they're not super hard. You being the basketball fan should be able to get it. And next week will be kind of fun because we're going to have Dave Bullwinkle, who is a scout for the Chicago Bulls, on. So that'll
we need to get someone named Rocky on there.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And actually, Dave spells his name a little different. It's not Bullwinkle; it's Bullwinkle. Yeah.
I know.
So
a lot of what we should have is Tom Bowerwinkle on as well.
Who's Tom Bowerwinkle?
Bowerwinkle was a center for the Chicago Bulls back in the day. So we could have Bullwinkle and Bowerwinkle at the same time.
And then we get Moose and Squirrel on. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if we got Moose Johnson on.
Yes, there you go. Yes, it's so funny because when I was a kid, I never was really into Bullwinkle, but I did like the let's get Moose on Squirrel.
It was a cartoon way ahead of its time.
Yes, yes, it was.
And Paul Frees was a Belvedere resident. Paul Frees, who was Boris Badenoff.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he's a Belvedere resident. My brother used to deliver pharmaceuticals to him when he worked for the Belvedere pharmacy.
Ah, okay, that's always kind of fun here in Marin County. We always seem to get a lot of famous people.
Go ahead.
A lot of musicians mostly. Okay, so when we get back, we got a lot of various things to cover. I'm not even going to go into them now. We'll get into them in the next segment. Stay with us, Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown along with Russell Jackman. Okay, lots of things to go over. So first thing I wanted to...
The number one thing to talk about, Shohei Ohtani. I don't care what your agenda was. That's the agenda for... When I heard the news, my shoulders slumped down and it went all the way to like my waistline. My back lost all. I mean, it ruined my Saturday. Even though I was at a friend's retirement party and I was the MC for his retirement party, it just cast a cloud upon every Giants fan, as if
because he's going to the Dodgers.
It's kind of as if Darth Vader stabbed Luke Skywalker with the lightsaber, and Luke Skywalker just dies at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, and there is no Return of the Jedi.
I assume you're a big Star Wars fan.
I have a story about how I was one of the first people ever to see Star Wars. Not because I was the first in line to see it, but I saw it being edited at Dolby Labs before it ever came out in the theater.
Interesting. Now, was the sound guy there too?
Yeah, they were doing the sound editing for it because.
Well, okay, so I'm friends with Ben Burt.
Do you know Yoan Allen?
I don't. I'm sure he does, but I don't.
He's the head vice president. Now he's president of Dolby Labs, but he invented the idea of Sense-Around. So Sense-Around, he tested it out when me and my best friend were at his house. He did a simulated earthquake that went around the room. All 4 different speakers, had the earthquake sound rotate on all 4 of them. And that was his big invention. And now it's in every theater in the world. And he's richer than Jesus, so to speak. So yeah, he's made a lot of money. And so they invited us to go see Star Wars because they wanted to see what kids thought of it. And they told Chris to invite 5 of his friends. We all went to to see them, and all the stuff that was cut out of the film that's in the extended version. We saw all that stuff being cut. That's the cutting room floor for Star Wars was Dolby Labs, because they had to cut it down to make it fit in the 2-hour time length, and also they wanted to make sure all the sound was synchronized. So,
well, it's fun because being friends with Ben I guess the last 6 months or so, it's been really cool. I actually had him on our business show because we were talking about how he basically invented the lightsaber sound and R2 and all that, and
sure, it was very innovative. It was very innovative at the time. But let's go back to the sports stuff, which is, I'm so angry about Shohei Ohtani. I'm just on every level that you can be angry.
Not only did he not go to the Giants, but he went to the Dodgers.
And there's the news now that he was able to defer all of the payments for the Dodgers, so that he's only making $2 million for the next couple of years.
Yeah, so I was trying to understand. I didn't read the whole thing. I'm going to guess it was his choice rather than the other way around.
Yes.
So he must be he must be a frugal person who says, "What do I need hundreds of millions now for?"
They say he makes $50 million a year in endorsements.
Okay.
And he'll make even more. He'll make even more as a Dodger. He'll probably make close to $100 million a year in endorsements. I mean, that was the whole thing with Michael Jordan. A lot of people don't realize that Michael Jordan's salary was between $3 to $5 million a year while he was playing basketball, because that's what the going rate was. But they estimated he made about $95 million in '80s dollars, in endorsements. Remember when Michael Jordan was everywhere?
Oh yeah. Well, Nike, he made more than all the Malaysia employees.
Probably all added together. Yeah, probably so. But this is not good for baseball. I don't think it is. I mean, it really shows that the big fish eats all the little fish in the aquarium, and so when you go to visit the aquarium, you're just going to see one big fat fish, or two big fat fishes, and not all the other little fishes.
Yeah, but all the other little fishes don't care. But in this case, maybe the players.
Let's put it this way: Shohei's estimated salary is $70 million a year. The A's entire payroll is $68 million.
Yeah. Well, and how much extra penalties, the luxury tax, are they going to have to pay? I don't know, because of the deferment.
Yeah, because of the deferment, they're going to escape having to pay luxury tax. And Major League Baseball got caught completely unaware. They snoozed, and now they lose. And
they're probably wondering. They go, "There's no way someone's going to defer that much."
Right, but we've seen with Bobby Bonilla. When Bobby Bonilla Day comes by, we know that such deals exist, and the Dodgers don't care. They are spending like drunken sailors, because they literally don't care. They want not only to get a World Series this year, but they are in 2024. But they want to get they want to get a World Series all the way through to 2034. And I'm not sure. You keep saying, well, the Dodgers have spent this kind of money, but they only have one title, and it's a crappy one from 2020. But now,
I wonder how much this has to do with just staying in SoCal. That being one issue. Maybe they
sure.
I'm not sure about that, but think of it. If this makes you feel better, he's not really making $700 million. What he's making is $350 million for pitching and $350 million for hitting.
None of that. Well, first of all, with Tommy John, he might not even do any pitching, so it may be another. You add another like 70 or 80 million on the batting side. But the Dodgers have enough salary room that they could add in a couple other big players. I mean, there's talk that Yamamoto is being, he's
a pitching team on it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's being courted by LA, and I just it's really, teams like the A's and Milwaukee and Arizona and
Yeah.
the cities that just don't have the kind of wherewithal and the money that LA can do. It's just going to show that it's going to become maybe Boston, LA, New York. It's a
Well, I was
worst
gonna say,
case.
the Yankees, they were always known for that. And before we go to our break, quick question for you. So, do you think the Giants fans are going to boo him?
Yes. And I'll
How
be
come?
one of them if I have the wherewithal to actually show up at the park. I really and as a lifelong Giants fan, if the Giants don't stay competitive, I may not go out to the park. I didn't go last year because what they put on the field was
Yeah.
just not worthy of spending my hard-earned money on.
Yes, but you realize you may cause an international incident by doing that.
I think I'm not alone. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of Giants fans that have seen Zaidi, Farhan Zaidi, who was, with the Dodgers, come over here and just be a big dud. He really hasn't made an impact in free agency. And the last big free agent that the Giants really sought out and got was Barry Bonds.
Yeah. Oh,
Next
yeah.
year makes 10 years since the Giants won a World Series, or we're even really competitive to win a World Series.
Bring back Bobby Evans as general manager.
That's
hey, okay. Okay,
That's
you ready for our first trivia question? All
I
right.
could keep going on the Shohei Ohtani thing. I could take the whole hour on Shohei Ohtani.
We
I really
have things to cover, and I appreciate that. Okay, here's our first trivia question on the NBA. Which San Antonio Spur won his only season MVP award in 1994-95 season? All right, that's our trivia question. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown along with Russell Jackman here. First trivia question on the NBA. Which San Antonio Spur won his only season MVP award in 1994-95?
The greatest piano player in the history of the NBA, David Robinson.
David Robinson. Okay, so now that I didn't know. I know he came from Navy.
You should go to YouTube and YouTube up David Robinson's piano playing, and you'll be amazed. He is a near concert pianist level.
Really? Okay. At probably get those really long fingers. That helps.
Yeah, but apparently, as a young child, before he played basketball, his parents made sure he had another skill. And, not only did he spend time in the military, and they called him the Admiral, but he had, even all that basketball whapping and smacking on his hands, he still managed to keep his hands in shape good enough to still play tremendous piano. So go check that out sometime.
I'll definitely do that. And then if I remember correctly, that was when he scored. We scored at 81 points.
I think he may have. He was a tremendous player. And then he added him with Wayman Tisdale, who was a tremendous bass player. Do you remember Wayman Tisdale at all?
I remember the name, sure.
Yeah, Wayman Tisdale was a tremendous jazz bass player, and so it would have been great if the NBA ever did like a music album with some of the players and their ability to play music.
Well, what's funny is I still remember, and I think this, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was the Andy Griffith show. Kids were, not interested in school. They only wanted to play football. And they ended up having Rosie Greer. Remember him?
Yes.
Yeah. And apparently he was a phenomenal piano player. And so he basically explained, hey, listen, you know what? You can do both. Effectively, that was a theme. You can do both.
Look up It's All Right to Cry by Rosie Greer on YouTube. And you'll see there was an album called Free to Be You and Me. When I listened to it as a kid, my parents got it for me. And that's one of Rosie's contributions, is that he tells kids that it's all, a big football player sings about it's all right to cry, and it's a touching song. It's a cute and touching song by one of the toughest guys in professional football history.
Yeah. He was a big boy.
Get named Rosie. That's a man of definitely a dichotomy.
I'm not sure what his real name. Oh, Roosevelt. That's right. His name is Roosevelt.
Yeah.
That's
But
right.
everybody called him Rosie. Yes.
Gotcha.
So
okay. We got a lot of things.
Let's talk about football. Let's talk about football since we're.
Okay. So let me first start off with this. Okay. So the Chiefs were upset about the penalty call, and
I was going right there. I was going right to that.
Okay. So I mean, first of all, this was so egregious, and here's the funny thing: if you remember, a few years ago, it was on the defensive side, and I don't remember the player's name, but he lined up offside, and that's what gave Tom Brady another shot and to get into the Super Bowl and win it. And I think that was against Atlanta when they so that was a big comeback too. But to me, that is completely inexcusable. There's no reason to go, oh, that extra 9 inches is going to get me, further down the. You know what? Just step back. You shouldn't even ever have to even look at the ref to say, hey, am I okay? Just automatically back yourself up a foot.
That doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me is Mahomes and Reed's reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
that bothers me. People line up offsides. That happens. But for them to then blame the refs for having the audacity to call it on them, sure, you call it on somebody else. That's no problem. But how dare you say that we had a problem and that we lined up offside? In fact, have you even heard some commentators saying, oh, the refs should go and tell the Chiefs that they're offside so they can fix it? It's
I guess the ref should also say, hey, you have 12 men on the field.
Yes.
Make sure one of those guys leaves. No, it's not.
Are you sure you have enough time before we can call a timeout for you? Can we call a timeout for you?
Yeah. In fact, you know what? Let's have the refs call the timeout before delay of game just to make sure they don't get a penalty.
Just to be nice,
I think
because the Chiefs are so special. I think the league should fine the Chiefs like $1 million. I really do.
I'm going to guess. And I'm totally guessing now that that it's really just out of frustration. They don't really want to yell at their player, and it's funny because that's the same player who actually made the touchdown, just being in the right place at the right time. But I think it's more out of frustration rather than like really getting upset with the refs, especially if you look at the play. And I don't know how many times
did you see Mahomes' reaction? The guy was crying. The guy was crying. And you know what? They've had enough time to turn around and say, you're right. We acted in the heat of battle. We shouldn't have said those things about the refs. It was our fault. We weren't disciplined. No, they have continued on their tirade of saying that, how dare the refs enforce the rules against us? We're the Kansas City Chiefs. We don't, we're better than the rules. We should be.
Well, and the Carolina Panthers should do the same. Hey, we're 1-12 or 1-13 or whatever.
Exactly.
We're better.
They have special treatment, but they deserve special treatment from the refs just because it reminds me of the people that get pulled over for speeding and then say, don't you know who I am?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're the guy I'm going to give a ticket to because you're speeding.
I've always had tickets to the policeman's ball, and my cousin knows the chief of police and all of that stuff. It's like, shut up. You guys lined up offside. People do that. That happens in the league 20, 30 times every week. Guys line up offside.
Otherwise, you know what? Why don't you just have them line up 5 yards past the line of scrimmage too?
Sure. Or just line up on the goal line every time so that Kansas City can just get a touchdown every possession, and that way they'll score 138 points a game, and that way we'll know how great the Chiefs are.
You know what? How about this? You've seen arena football, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how it's not illegal.
The Sabercats. I remember the Sabercats.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, just in general, the idea that you can get a running start a wide receiver. So why don't they let him do that? Say, listen, you can't call it
It's
illegal
embarrassing. The
on
league
us.
really needs to send a message to Reed and to Mahomes and fine them severely for this. It's just embarrassing that a major franchise like that could basically act the way that little children do. I mean, in fact, I've seen kids take referee calls better that, in Pop Warner football. I've seen them be more stoic about it and be better sportsmen.
Did you see? I think it was last year. They was caught on film. Some high school player was so upset with the referee for calling some penalty against him that he knocked him out. I mean, he literally tackled him and knocked him to the ground. And he was an old man referee.
Sign him to the Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you know what? I think you have a really good point though about Mahomes and Reed should now take a deep breath and then go back and say and do exactly what you said. You know what? We realize the heat of battle. We really, now that we looked at it, we really actually have to agree with the referees. It's unfortunate.
You have to, because that's what happened. And for them to deny it and to stomp their feet and to continue to cry when you guys lost the game. And it isn't just that one play. There's a whole football game that goes behind that play where Chiefs, you were behind. You lost to Buffalo. And give Buffalo credit. That's the other thing that sucks. Yeah. Is with all of this, they're not saying, hey, Buffalo, you held us to 18 points. And you beat us fair and square. And we made the mistake. And you guys are a more talented team. None of that is going on. They're just acting like whiny babies.
Because we're the Chiefs. Hello. Remember for years, it was the Patriots were kind of like that.
Look, it's going to be the Niners Super Bowl this year. I mean, this is the Super Bowl for them to lose right now. The way that the Eagles fell apart to Dallas, the way that the 49ers now have beaten Seattle 5 times. You're not supposed to be able to, the adage is that it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. But now the 49ers have beaten Seattle 5 times in a row.
Yeah, it's funny how, and I'm sure you were like me, it's like, we're actually rooting for Dallas. That's weird.
No, I was rooting against the Eagles.
Really? Even though you knew what the outcome was.
I was rooting against the Eagles. I was not rooting for Dallas. You have two. Those are two different things.
I thought you said you were rooting for the Eagles. Okay, no,
I was rooting against the Eagles, but I was not. I was tacitly rooting for Dallas. Somehow,
I mean, the fact that, listen, when they're playing each other, that you only have 2 choices. You can't vote against both teams.
The Eagles could have lost without Dallas winning. I would have been okay with that.
Okay, ready?
Here.
Here's our second trivia question on the NBA. Which Nugget and Hawk was the first player in NBA history to win 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards?
Oh, okay.
That's our trivia question. Yeah, I think you know this one too.
Yes.
All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 1. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman. Our second trivia question: which Nugget and Hawk was the first player in NBA history to win 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards?
Well, I have a little mini story about that I'll relate.
Okay, but just don't shake your finger at me.
Exactly, Dickie Mo, Dikembe Mutombo. But the story that I have is that he went to Georgetown, and my friend was at Georgetown at the same time that Dikembe Mutombo was center for Georgetown, and he was at a bar in D.C. and Dikembe Mutombo walks in, and Dikembe announces, he's got that huge voice of his.
Yeah, he
walks into the bar, spreads his hands out wide, and says, "Who will F Mutombo?" That was his, and that was like how he, entered the bar, and then all these ladies just surrounded him.
Oh, jeez! Oh, that's what he meant.
Yeah.
Oh, brother!
my friend goes, "Who will F Matumbo?"
Did your friend say, "I will"?
No, you couldn't get in after the crowd of women surrounded
You
him.
know,
So
I tell you, you know what is so funny? I actually I love those commercials that he's in like the supermarket.
now, yeah, where
Yeah,
you like watch the
yeah, the cereal box and
signaling goes,
no,
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 no, yeah, with
not
his
in my
finger.
house.
Cute. He definitely is a guy that embraced that role
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah. No, that's
the
great. That's so
finger
great.
whack. The
The
finger
finger
whack.
whack. Okay, going back to football for just a minute here. So the Eagles security guard was barred from the sidelines for the Cowboys uh, game after the Greenlaw altercation. Which, by the way, they both talked it out and sort of made up, which is kind of sweet. Uh, and is he gone for the? Was he gone just for that game, or is he gone for the whole season?
It would be appropriate, A, if he was gone for the whole season, and B, if the NFL were to make some sort of edict and said, if you're not an actual player, or a coach, you should never, in fact, it should just be a player, that nobody that's not a player should ever contact a player that's in the game. There should be
And
a
also,
rule.
did they need him that close to the sidelines, or could he be, pushed
Yeah, there
back?
was no reason for him to be there. And then
Yeah,
for him to actually make contact with a player, I think is a terrible precedent because, you could just, every team could just say, you know what? Hey,
yeah.
Russ, come on out and hang out by the sidelines. And if somebody gets knocked out of bounds, go kick him,
Yeah.
get into a fight and you'll both be ejected. And that's fine. We'll pay for your luxury box seat next week. You
Yeah.
can sit much,
Wait a minute, hold on. I'm kind of getting the feeling that Buddy Sotelo is coming out.
It's kind of
Show.
that way. If you're not a participant, you shouldn't be able to contact anyone that's on, and so the NFL should just say, look, you get a lifetime ban. If you
Yeah.
are on the sidelines and because otherwise, what is to keep people from just mobbing someone
Yeah.
if you get knocked out of bounds and like the entire bench goes and starts, kicking
Okay,
and
so
punching.
hold on for a second. Okay, so for the audience who doesn't know, Russell Jackman, our co-host here, aka Buddy Sotelo, wrestling manager, did you ever inappropriately, when you were not in the ring as a player but only as a manager, ever get involved inappropriately in the ring?
Now, Jesse Ventura, former governor
Yeah.
of Minnesota, used to have a saying, which is that anything is legal if the ref doesn't see it. And so if the ref doesn't see it, anything is legal to the count of 4. So if the ref doesn't see it, or you have until the count of 4 to stop doing it, then it's
Yeah.
totally legal.
And it's so funny because I remember as a kid watching and kind of knowing that it was like, this can't really be real, but it was so frustrating that, you'd see the ref sort of not paying attention. He, like a tag team match, he was paying attention to the other wrestler. Yeah, it's like, hey, everyone's yelling at him.
Or you make them pay attention to you so that your wrestler can go and load his glove with the horseshoe, and hit the guy on the head with it, or grab a chair or something like that and hit someone.
I tell you, wouldn't it be funny if the audience basically didn't play along with it? It would have been so weird, for the audience, like, even though they know, like, hey, turn around, he's doing something illegal, just kind of like la 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 la.
Kids and older folks always go crazy when the manager cheats. Kids and the elderly always go. Yeah, they were always the ones that reacted the most when I would go and do my sneaky stuff.
Now, did you ever have to like worry about your safety?
In Pacifica, I did. And the show we did in Pacifica, those fans were crazy. They threw stuff at us.
No, Pacifica is kind of sort of a foggy type town.
I know, but the high schoolers there are insane. They were the craziest audience that we had. in all of California that I went to. The Pacifica audience was absolutely insane. They threw stuff at me and my wrestler. They and then I told you there was a mentally disabled guy in the front row who had an entire a thermos full of white hot coffee, and he poured it all over my wrestler.
Ooh.
And my guy was furious. But guess who was standing right outside the locker room looking for our autograph when we finished the show? That guy was standing there. So people are absolute. Sometimes the wrestling audiences, people are totally insane. And of course, there's lots of stories in the 70s and 60s about guys getting stabbed and slashed by fans. Roddy Piper got stabbed a couple times, and he had to start wearing a flak jacket to the ring, because he was afraid of getting shot. There are guys who brought guns to the arena and threatened to shoot wrestlers. So the answer is yes. The answer is
that kind of reminds me, the movie The Warriors came out in I think 79, and it was so violent against, it was the whole thing about gang trying to escape back to their home turf, that there were like killings and fights.
Yeah, and you see it now, and you go, gosh, there's way more violent stuff in kids' cartoons, than the Warriors. My 12-year-old daughter saw The Warriors and was like unfazed by it. It's like, oh, it's a fun movie, but she's like, it didn't scare her at all, but it takes a lot to scare today's kids.
Well, yeah, that's true. And the thing is, it wasn't necessarily a scary movie, but it was all about gang fighting and that sort of thing.
The Warriors have taken that, the Golden State Warriors have adopted the chant of Warriors.
Oh, yeah. Warriors.
So if you want to say that it had an influence, it still does, even today. Even in today's game. But
one last thing about football. Let's get back to football for just a minute.
Sure.
Roger Bell says football will be a global sport within a decade. Now it's already gone to Germany and London.
But isn't it already?
Well, I think what they're talking about is like maybe actually having an expansion team. Is what he means.
Go back to the World League. If you're going to do that, just go and do the World League. I didn't think the World League was such a bad idea. I mean, I thought it was good to have, but then have it be a separate league. Because I think when you talk about making the NFL have to appear in Germany and France and Mexico City,
and
China, and Japan, it's too much travel in a week. We are already seeing just the effects of having to travel within the week. Seattle was, or the Eagles were complaining that the 49ers had Thanksgiving and then they had a whole, 10 days off before they had to play Philadelphia, whereas Philadelphia had to play a Monday night game and then had to turn around and play the 49ers on a short week, whereas the Niners had 10 days off. Now, they had a full week to rest against Dallas and got their butts kicked. So that just shows you maybe, they were maybe overhyping how difficult that was. But I think that with the schedule the way it is, trying to and you kind of have the travel and COVID and the risk that staying being on a plane for 30 hours is going to take.
I wouldn't worry about apparently the air they figured out a way to make the air a lot cleaner in the airplanes. But that being said, I think the travel part, unless you're going to have a situation where it's like, okay, you go to Germany, then the next week you go to France, the next week you go to England, so there's not that much travel within Europe. But
the other thing too is that it takes away one of your home games.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money for these teams. Yes, like when the Niners went to Mexico City, I was amazed 2 years ago when the Niners went to Mexico City and how much incredible fan favoritism the Mexico City audience had for the 49ers. They were crazy for the 49ers. It looked like a home game at Levi's.
Well, why don't they? You know what? Here's one way to get rid of that issue with the home game is just do like baseball, have 162 games.
Yeah, Well, like 17, and they'll probably in our lifetime move to 18 games, and maybe
Probably.
eliminate one more
Well, it used to
preseason.
be 14. Remember
Oh yeah,
years ago? Yeah.
right. And that's why Miami will probably never have its unbeaten streak
Well,
defeated
it's funny. I mean, if you think about it, New England had more undefeated,
games in a row.
games,
Yes.
yeah, in a row, and then they just for whatever reason,
But I just think the fatigue of playing 16 or 17 games plus the playoffs and all that. Also back then in the 14 game season, there were no wild cards.
correct.
When Miami,
but all the teams have the same. So it's not like one team has to play 40 games and one team has to play 14.
no, but Miami had a much shorter route to win a Super Bowl than what we have.
True, but we're not talking about the Super Bowl. We're just talking about undefeated.
Right.
Right.
But to play 3 more games in a season.
Yeah, no, that definitely
very
sure. You could say, "Hey, I played 2 games and I'm undefeated." That's not a big deal. No,
Miami is probably going to gravy train that to their very end of their existence. Whoever dies last from that Miami team is probably going to be popping the champagne. Every time a team there's no more undefeated teams in the NFL. Am I keeping you up, my friend? Am I keeping you up from your? You look like you're ready to take a nap. You yawn like.
Yeah. Oh, you could see me. Huh? Yeah. And by the way, no. It was just a very long. I'm anticipating a very long day today.
Nobody falls asleep while they're talking to me, so I don't know how.
No, it ain't nothing to do with you, my friend. Hey, okay. Last thing before we go to our last break. Roger Goodell, I already said that one. Alabama quarterback Tyler Buckner, he's going to be transferring out of Alabama to play lacrosse. Holy smokes, that's a new one.
I guess. I mean, lacrosse. Yeah, I don't know why you'd want to give up. I mean, I guess maybe he has a major where he's going to be probably doing something that doesn't involve football anyway. So, and you have lacrosse. The thing is, if you're going to leave football, you'd think you'd want to join something that would be less physical.
That's true. Hey, we got to cut to our last break. Sorry about it. Third trivia question. The great Michael Jordan won 1995-96 season MVP award. Who topped him for the 1996-97 by only 29 total points? Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back with some closing comments. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Russell Jackman. Here's our third trivia question. The great Michael Jordan won the 1995-96 season MVP award. But who topped him for the award in 1996-97 by only 29 total points?
The mailman, Karl Malone.
The mailman. Very good. 3 for 3. Very good.
No, you'll have to dig deeper into your bag of trivia to beat me with the NBA stuff.
Yeah, okay. So the test is on. I get it.
Yeah. Start bringing up Maurice Podoloff, and that's where I might falter, a little bit. So
or some Sleepy Floyd or something. Hey, last thing I wanted to talk about today before we go to our thoughts for the day. So Tyreek Hill will take care of the videographer's salary. This was the one where the videographer was suspended from the NFL. He was like a kid too. After Hill used his cell phone during a touchdown celebration, Fitzgibbon was his name, was seen jumping up and down in excitement, and that's what drew the ire of the NFL. Are you kidding me? A young kid who's like a photographer or something, he has this great gig and he gets excited. I guess because he knows Tyreek Hill. And he basically gets suspended.
Well, didn't he supply the cell phone to Tyreek Hill?
Well, I think Tyreek Hill took it from him apparently, but still.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but apparently, what got the NFL all in their pantyhose in a wad, or whatever you want to say, is that it was the fact that he was seen kind of jumping up and down in excitement. I mean, come on.
It is great to see how the NFL can come down hard on a poor kid like that, but that big fat blob the Eagles. It took them.
Well, they
like
did come down, right?
days.
They did suspend him.
I know, but it took them like 3 or 4 days to do that. And probably lots of anger from the 49ers to get that
Probably.
out.
Okay. Russell, we got to cut out for today. Here's our thoughts. All right. Why can't you trust the king of the jungle? Because he's always lying. That's right. And
you got to give me 1 second to think, and then go, what's the corniest answer? And then I've got it for you.
All right. What do sea monsters eat?
Sea monsters eat
fish and ships.
Cereal?
No, fish and ships. Okay, tune in next week. The Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions.
Cereal. SEAREAL.
On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Adios.